I love your bag. Where'd you get it? That was the question that Dr. Teresa Mackey received at her job via a mysterious email sent to her on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 at 11:23 p.m., along with a controversial image. The security footage photo, according to court documents, featured Teresa's husband, Dr. Shawn C. Mackey Sr., with another woman pressed up pretty closely behind him. Shawn would later admit in court documents that it was indeed him and a woman who is not his wife who were caught on camera. While Shawn and Teresa reside in Madison, Mississippi, and have 3 children, Shawn had taken a little trip to an Airbnb Superhost home for a weekend away in Memphis. That long weekend away from Friday, September 9th, 2022 until Sunday, September 11th, 2022 at the Airbnb home called Little Bit More Country has turned into a nightmare of a lawsuit involving accusations of adultery, blackmail, and more. Shawn is accusing both Airbnb and the Superhost, Pamela Fohler, of RICO racketeer and corrupt organization violations. Shawn believes Airbnb and Pamela tried to shake him down for additional money in the wake of his stay, and claims Pamela caused lots of emotional distress by sending that incriminating photo and email with the subject line "nice bag" to Shawn's wife. I simply had to download a bunch of court documents, in this case of Mackey versus Airbnb Inc. et al., to see how this wild tale of an author cheating on his cancer-stricken wife would end. The 50-year-old Shawn Mackey likely rused the day he ever created an Airbnb account on July 30th, 2019. Let's go over this whole sordid story. Character and integrity make the man. In its absence, so are you, declared author and speaker Shawn C. Mackey when promoting his book, titled Her Battle, My Lessons, Our Journey, A Husband's Account Up Close and Very Personal. The paperback was published on September 22nd, 2022. Ironically, that is only 2 days after Shawn's wife Teresa would have received that incriminating photo and email of her husband with a mystery woman. You cannot effectively process things, good or bad, if you don't acknowledge and confront them, Shawn wrote in the book's promotions. On Amazon, the book's description says, "In the war against cancer, we have heard many stories about the strength, perseverance, fortitude, and sheer force of the world's female breast cancer warriors. By their own accounts, the prospect of victory would be bleak without a consistent support battalion." In his debut book, new author Shawn C. Mackey Sr. offers a candid yet passionate account of his wife's and his fight against breast cancer from the perspective of the ones most ill-equipped but forced on the front line, the husbands. With fears, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities put on full display, this book is filled with guidance, hope, inspiration, and love. It is born out of the necessity of attempting to make sense of the effects of cancer. Most importantly, Shawn gives a raw account of how those effects can affect the communication, intimacy, and peace in your marriage or relationship. While the husbands of cancer victims do not physically carry cancer in their bodies, they do carry its burden mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, bravely and boldly, welcoming the fight alongside their wives. The cancer journey is like none other. There is no preparation. It is like being thrown into the deep end of an ocean and forced to learn, not just how to swim, but how to survive. Until now, no other how-to book has given such a transparent account of how husbands and wives cry, laugh, strategize, make life-altering decisions and sacrifices, and function as a team to survive this ferocious intruder, cancer. Reading that powerful book description reminded me of Wesley Snipes' character in the movie Waiting to Exhale. He met Angela Bassett's character in a bar at a time when they were both heartbroken. She from her recent marital breakdown, he from the pain of having a wife stricken with cancer, and thusly he didn't want to place his emotional burden on his wife. Most touching was the scene that displayed their characters spending the night in a hotel room, waking up the next morning fully clothed and atop the still-made bed, only needing the spooning touch of another human being. But is Shawn Mackey's Airbnb scene akin to the one in Waiting to Exhale? In court documents, Shawn writes, "I am an adult resident citizen of the state of Mississippi and reside in Madison, Mississippi. I was born and raised in Mississippi. I am 50 years old and have lived in Mississippi all of my life except for 2 years when I lived in Memphis. My wife is an adult resident citizen of Mississippi, and she also was born and raised in Mississippi and has never lived anywhere else. In July 2022, I was looking for a place to stay in Memphis with some friends to see a ball game there. A friend of mine, also a Mississippi resident, recommended the Fohler's house in Memphis to me. As reflected by the logs of the Airbnb website, on July 19, 2022, I contacted Pamela Fohler through the Airbnb website, and we began negotiations for me to rent her house in Tennessee. During those conversations, I was physically located in Mississippi. We confirmed our agreement to rent the house on September 7, 2022, for the weekend of September 9th through 11. I furnished my phone number to Pamela Fohler and Airbnb as part of the rental. Airbnb and Fohler furnished her phone number to me. This is the same phone number which sent the threatening text message to me on September 22, 2022, threatening to send compromising photographs and/or videos of me in the presence of another woman to my wife. After I refused to capitulate to the threats of extortion, I was informed by my wife that she had received an email while she was at work in Mississippi from someone claiming to be Shawn69gmail.com with the subject, "Nice bag." She showed me the photograph, and it is indeed a photograph of me and the other woman taken on the night in question at defendant Fohler's home in Memphis. The so-called threatening text message that Shawn is referring to reads, "Hello, Shawn. I hope you are well. Sorry it took so long to get the photos you requested together to show your stay at our home. But I had faith, was driven by integrity, so I committed to get these posted for you and Airbnb. The photo at 3:16 a.m. is especially notable. Should I forward the photos and videos to Teresa, or will you? The videos will come shortly. I think they are too big for text, so I will post to YouTube. Have a wonderful weekend." From reading all the court documents I downloaded, find links to some of them below if you want to dig into this drama. What started out as a friendly exchange between Shawn and his Airbnb host, Pamela, devolved over a number of issues. The entire guest suite, hosted by Pamela, says the Superhost once enjoyed 4.5 stars out of 8 reviews for her home, suited for 9 guests, with 3 bedrooms, 4 beds, and 2 baths. The rules included terms such as no smoking or vaping anywhere on the property, no pets or parties allowed. Pamela doesn't book to locals, only registered guests can stay in the booked space and use the pool. Security cameras on the exterior of the house are in use at all times. Well, these last 2 rules are where the breakdown came into play. Shawn balked at giving Pamela all the names of all the guests who would visit the Airbnb home. Considering that detrimental photo at 3:16 a.m., perhaps we know why. And it was those same security cameras on the exterior of the house in use at all times that caught Shawn with the other woman in the middle of the night. Shawn would complain that Pamela never told him that the cameras had audio. Meanwhile, Pamela complained that her neighbors were making noise complaints during Shawn's stay with his guests. Shawn claimed that Pamela changed the rules on him mid-stay and limited the number of vehicles to only 4 in the driveway. Communications broke down to such a degree that the locks were changed on the Airbnb during his stay. An extra $660 for the extra guest fee was charged, a fee that Shawn deemed extortion and refused to pay. Shawn wrote, "Pamela's text was threatening and an attempt to extort. She assumed this would prevent me from pursuing my personal refunding, filing a complaint about the discrimination that occurred to Airbnb, and ensuring that I would pay the additional money she requested. I have been told that this behavior is criminal and therefore illegal, a violation of state and federal law and Airbnb policy. Pamela also sought out my wife's work email and emailed a photo to her place of employment. She acted on her threats and extortion attempt when I did not give in to her demands or respond as she had hoped to her text. Pamela also sought out my wife's work email and emailed a photo to her place of employment. Shawn went on to say that the review he had left was removed from the Airbnb Superhosts page. Plenty of filings have been submitted in this heated lawsuit involving plaintiff Shawn Mackey versus defendant Airbnb, Inc., and Pamela Fohler. The most recent filing as of this recording took place on February 8, 2024. While Pamela claims she was within her rights to ask Shawn and his multitude of guests to leave her Airbnb after her neighbors allegedly complained about the noise in the quiet neighborhood, Shawn claims none of the noise complaints are true. Shawn claims in his lawsuit that the intentional acts to invade his privacy and inflict upon him emotional distress and subject him to public ridicule specifically were done to damage his marriage. Shawn claims that Airbnb acted in concert with Pamela to extort monies from him and engaged in extortion by using private information, including photographs collected during his Airbnb stay at a sanctioned home. Shawn's factual allegations claim that he had originally planned for 4 people to stay with him, but he wanted to have a place where he could invite additional old friends. Shawn said he made clear to Pamela that his additional guests would be having dinner at the home that night, but would not be staying. The advertised booking stated that the home could accommodate up to 12 guests, Shawn claims, even though Shawn said he was told that additional guests were welcome and that he could update his guest counts on the guest lists at any time, and instructions on how the guests' cars should be parked were given. He claims his number of guests and cars became a problem. Shawn admitted that Pamela went out of her way to inform him that, please note, Airbnb requires us to inform you of the following. There are additional charges / penalties / fines for violating any house rules. At 4:02 p.m. on the afternoon of September 9, 2022, Shawn checked in. At 6:08 p.m., Shawn updated the guest list as follows. The reservation said we could have up to 12 guests. Some of those include Stacy, Carol, Ursula, Kim, Tony, Marlon, 20s, Daryl, Darius, and maybe a few more. Only 4 to 5 will be staying overnight. Very soon thereafter, at 6:18 that night, Pamela told Shawn for the first time that only 8 guests would be permitted at the residence. In addition, Pamela stated for the first time, according to Shawn, that there would be an additional cost for each guest, whether they spent the night or not. She also reinforced her strict no parties rule. A few moments later, at 6:27 p.m., Pamela imposed an additional new rule that only 4 cars would now be permitted at the residence, says Shawn. By 7:13 p.m., Pamela demanded that Shawn either add the extra guests now or have them leave immediately. She also made unfounded accusations that she had received complaints of yelling and profanity in the parking area, Shawn claimed. Several minutes later, at 7:31 p.m., Pamela accused Shawn of violating the no party rule, of having unauthorized guests, and disturbing the neighbors by yelling and cursing in the parking lot. At this point, Pamela demanded that Shawn and his guests leave the property. In fact, none of this was true, Shawn says. Only one additional guest had actually shown up for a total of 5 guests at the home. No party had taken place. No one had been yelling or cursing in the parking lot. These were simply pretexts for the host and Airbnb to collect more money from Shawn in the form of fees and fines. He insisted Shawn had nowhere else to go, so he called Pamela's husband, Jamie. Everything calmed down, Shawn says, and he assured Jamie that no party had taken place and only 5 people were there. Jamie assured Shawn he could continue his stay without further consequence or interruption. But the following morning, Saturday, September 10th, 2022, at 8:56 a.m., Pamela told Shawn through Airbnb, "I hope you have enjoyed your stay. Here are your checkout instructions. The checkout date is September 11th, 2022 by 10 a.m. Please strip the bed you slept in and leave the linens and all used towels on the bathroom floor. Don't forget to turn off the lights, lock the door, and we wish you safe travels on your journey." That same Saturday night, however, after being assured that everything was fine and that checkout was to be the following morning on the 11th, Shawn and his guests ate out at another location. When Shawn returned to the property to spend the last night there, he was denied entry because the locks had been changed. Shawn had to contact Pamela to regain entry. By Sunday, Shawn and his guests checked out thinking everything was okay. Immediately after his stay was over, Shawn posted a review on Airbnb and requested a refund of over $500, but it was denied. After the review, Shawn says Pamela began harassing him about his review and was obviously concerned about her Airbnb superhost status. That's when Shawn claimed the shakedown began. Shawn's Airbnb account was paused, and he was informed by Airbnb that he now owed an additional $950 to Airbnb. Shawn claimed that Airbnb should not have sided with Pamela, a woman who was all too eager to send a photo of Shawn with a woman who wasn't his wife directly to his wife. Shawn claims with his lawyer that defendant Pamela Fohler's defense in this case, both as to personal jurisdiction and apparently as to the merits of the case, is a defense locally referred to among criminal defense counsel in the Greenville, Mississippi area as the Saudi defense. Saudi is an acronym which stands for Some Other Dude Did It. The primary thrust of her arguments that this court does not have personal jurisdiction over her is that she is not the one who made the threats of extortion, and that she is not the one who sent the incriminating photo to the plaintiff's wife, as reflected by the affidavit of the plaintiff, Shawn Mackey, attached hereto as Exhibit 1. The photo is indeed one taken of him and his companion on the night in question at defendant Fohler's house. The text message that was sent to Mackey transmitting the threats of extortion were from the telephone number given to Mackey by Fohler and Airbnb as her own telephone number. The internal references in the text message reference the incident which no one knew about except her. Shawn's motion further claims that the internal references in the text message also specifically relate to the plaintiff's stay at our house. Fohler is the only one who had any motive to send to the plaintiff these threats of extortion. Finally, common sense dictates that Fohler, the owner of the home and the owner of the camera, was the only one who had access to the incriminating photos and videos. The overwhelming weight of the evidence, even at this early date, is that the threats of extortion came from Fohler, as did the fulfillment of those wicked threats, and the remainder of this response assumes those to be the case, as should the court. Sadly, the verbal acts did not cease with the mere threats of extortion. When the plaintiff refused to be kowtowed and succumbed to such threats, Fohler, though she now claims some other dude did it, made good on her threats of extortion and delivered the photos to the plaintiff's wife at her place of business in Mississippi. This act also was a verbal act of revelation of information not previously in the public domain for the purpose of embarrassing the plaintiff and clearly occurred in Mississippi. If nothing else, the ends of justice provide venue. The acts of extortion and wire fraud were received in Mississippi by a Mississippi resident. The threats were threatened actions to expose the secrets of one Mississippi resident to another Mississippi resident in violation of Mississippi laws. The defendant's words intended to cause damages in Mississippi to a Mississippi marriage and further intended to cause emotional distress between two Mississippians. Those efforts were successful. The underlying controversy is whether the defendants Fohler and Airbnb formed an association in fact, enterprise, and engaged in acts of mail fraud and extortion in violation of federal racketeering laws, federal extortion laws, and various state laws of Mississippi, California, and Tennessee. Defendant Fohler's contacts with the forum state are directly affiliated with the controversy. Her text messages whereby she threatened the extortion were made to a resident of Mississippi. At a time when she knew he was a resident of Mississippi, they were delivered to him in Mississippi, and they caused damages to him in Mississippi. And unless this court buys Fohler's assertions that some other dude did it, she also took great delight in exposing plaintiff's wrongdoing to his wife. Also in Mississippi, Shawn has demanded a trial by jury to settle this matter. So what do you think? Should Shawn have quietly paid the extra fee to avoid this madness? Or is he well within his rights to stand his ground in this lawsuit? Do you think it will be dismissed, or will Airbnb have to pay Shawn plenty of money? Stay tuned for updates. Proverbs 5:18. Let your fountain, wife, be blessed with the rewards of fidelity, and rejoice in the wife of your youth.